Buster Keaton, born Joseph Frank Keaton on October 4, 1895, in the rural town of Piqua, Kansas, is remembered as one of the most brilliant and innovative performers in the history of cinema. With his unchanging, stoic expression and an unmatched ability to perform daring stunts, Keaton became an icon of silent film, earning the moniker the Great Stone Face. But behind the scenes, Keaton's life was a whirlwind of triumphs, heartbreaks, and personal demons that would ultimately lead to a tragic ending. His story is one of resilience in the face of adversity, a journey marked by both extraordinary highs and devastating lows. Keaton's path to stardom began almost as soon as he could walk. Born into a family of vaudeville performers, Keaton was thrust onto the stage as an infant, quite literally. His parents, Joseph Halley Keaton and Myra Keaton, were seasoned performers who toured the country with their vaudeville act. The family was constantly on the move, performing in town after town, living out of suitcases, and enduring the hardships of a life on the road. According to legend, the great magician Harry Houdini, who was touring with the Keatons at the time, gave young Joseph his nickname. After seeing the toddler fall down a flight of stairs without injury, Houdini reportedly exclaimed, "That was a real Buster." The name stuck, and from that point on, Joseph Keaton was known as Buster, a name that would become synonymous with his incredible resilience and daring physical comedy. As a child, Keaton became a regular part of his parents' act, known as the Three Keatons. The act was rough, even by vaudeville standards. Buster was often thrown around the stage by his father, creating the illusion of dangerous, slapstick violence that was tempered by the boy's unflappable expression. Audiences were amazed at the young boy's ability to take a fall and get back up without missing a beat. But while the act made Keaton a star on the vaudeville circuit, it was also a grueling experience. The physical demands were intense, and the constant touring left little time for a normal childhood. Keaton later recalled his early years with a mix of pride and weariness. While he had learned the art of timing, physical comedy, and resilience from a very young age, the life of a child star in vaudeville was far from idyllic. The punishing nature of the act, combined with the nomadic lifestyle, left Keaton with a deep-seated sense of loneliness and a wariness of settling down. These early experiences would profoundly shape both his approach to comedy and his personal life. By the time he was a teenager, Keaton had honed his skills to perfection. He was a seasoned performer with a unique style that blended physical comedy with an almost mechanical precision. But as vaudeville began to decline, Keaton knew that he needed to find a new outlet for his talents. That opportunity came in 1917 when he met Roscoe "Fatty" Arbuckle, a popular comedian who was making a name for himself in the burgeoning film industry. Arbuckle invited Keaton to appear in a short film called The Butcher Boy, marking Keaton's first experience with the camera. The transition from stage to screen was seamless for Keaton, whose physical comedy was perfectly suited to the visual demands of silent film. He quickly became Arbuckle's co-star and collaborator, appearing in a series of successful shorts that showcased his extraordinary abilities. But Keaton was not content to remain in front of the camera. He was fascinated by the mechanics of filmmaking and soon began directing his own films. The 1920s were a period of incredible creativity and success for Keaton. It was during this decade that he produced some of his most iconic works, including The Navigator, 1924, Sherlock Jr., 1924, The General, 1926, and Steamboat Bill Jr., 1928. These films were a testament to Keaton's genius as both a performer and a director. He was known for his meticulous attention to detail, his innovative use of special effects, and his willingness to take risks, both physically and creatively. In Sherlock Jr., for example, Keaton plays a projectionist who dreams of becoming a detective. The film is a masterclass in visual storytelling, featuring groundbreaking special effects that allow Keaton's character to seamlessly transition from one scene to another. The film's dreamlike quality and Keaton's flawless execution of complex stunts have earned it a place among the greatest films of all time. The General, set during the American Civil War, is perhaps Keaton's most ambitious and technically challenging film. The story follows a train engineer who single-handedly takes on a group of Union soldiers in a daring rescue mission. The film's most famous sequence, in which Keaton rides atop a moving train while navigating a series of dangerous obstacles, is a marvel of physical comedy and choreography. Although The General was not a commercial success at the time, it has since been recognized as a cinematic masterpiece. Keaton's films from this era are characterized by their blend of comedy, drama, and technical innovation. He was a master of visual gags and complex set pieces, often using the camera in ways that had never been seen before. His deadpan expression, combined with his ability to perform incredibly dangerous stunts, made him a unique figure in the world of silent cinema. Unlike his contemporaries, who relied on exaggerated facial expressions and gestures, Keaton's comedy was rooted in subtlety and precision. Despite his success in the 1920s, the following decade would prove to be one of the most challenging periods of Keaton's life. The advent of sound in cinema marked the end of the silent era, and with it, the careers of many silent film stars. Keaton, whose physical comedy had been perfectly suited to silent film, struggled to adapt to the new medium. His distinctive style did not translate well to the talkies, and the creative control he once enjoyed was increasingly taken away by studio executives who were more interested in commercial success than artistic innovation. Keaton's personal life also began to unravel during this time. His marriage to actress Natalie Talmadge, which had been strained for years, finally collapsed in 1932. The couple's divorce was a bitter and highly publicized affair, with Talmadge taking custody of their two sons and cutting off all contact between them and their father. The loss of his family, combined with the pressures of his faltering career, sent Keaton into a deep depression. He turned to alcohol as a way to cope, and his drinking soon spiraled out of control. The 1930s were a dark period for Keaton. Stripped of his creative independence, he was reduced to working on low-budget comedies and supporting roles in films that offered little opportunity to showcase his talents. His drinking became increasingly problematic, leading to erratic behavior on set and further damaging his reputation in Hollywood. By the mid-1930s, Keaton was all but forgotten by the industry he had once dominated, reduced to taking whatever work he could find to make ends meet. In 1934, Keaton married his second wife, May Scriven, in what would later be described as a drunken elopement. The marriage was short-lived and unhappy, ending in divorce just 2 years later. Keaton's alcoholism continued to take its toll, both personally and professionally, and by the end of the decade, he was struggling to stay afloat in a rapidly changing industry. The 1940s marked a turning point for Keaton. After hitting rock bottom, he made a conscious decision to turn his life around. With the help of friends and colleagues, Keaton sought treatment for his alcoholism and began to rebuild his career. He found work as a gag writer at MGM, where he contributed to several successful comedies, including A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, 1966. Though these projects did not return Keaton to the spotlight, they allowed him to continue working in the industry he loved and provided a much-needed sense of stability. During this period, Keaton also began to receive recognition for his contributions to cinema. In 1952, he was awarded an honorary Academy Award, a long-overdue acknowledgement of his status as one of the pioneers of film comedy. The award ceremony marked a turning point in Keaton's life, as it signaled the beginning of a renewed interest in his silent films, which had been largely forgotten by the public. This rediscovery of Keaton's work was fueled by the efforts of film historians and critics who recognized the timeless quality of his films. As television became more widespread in the 1950s, Keaton's silent comedies were introduced to new audiences, who were captivated by his physical dexterity and the innovative humor that transcended the limitations of the silent era. Keaton's reputation as a cinematic genius was restored, and he enjoyed a newfound respect within the industry. Keaton's personal life also stabilized during this time. In 1940, he married his third wife, Eleanor Norris, a union that would last until his death. Eleanor, who was 23 years his junior, provided Keaton with the companionship and support he had long been missing. Together, they traveled the world, attending film festivals and retrospectives of Keaton's work, where he was often hailed as a living legend. Despite his advancing age and declining health, Keaton remained active in the entertainment industry well into the 1960s. He made guest appearances on television shows, performed in commercials, and even starred in a few feature films. Though the roles were often small and the projects less prestigious than his earlier work, Keaton continued to bring his unique brand of humor to every performance. Buster Keaton's life came to a quiet end on February 1, 1966, when he succumbed to lung cancer at the age of 70. His death was sudden, but in keeping with the man who had always faced adversity with stoic determination, Keaton had continued working almost up until the very end. In the months leading up to his death, He had been working on a television pilot and making appearances at film festivals, where he was celebrated as one of the last great stars of the silent era. Keaton's passing marked the end of an era, but his legacy has continued to grow in the years since his death. His films, once dismissed as relics of a bygone age, have been rediscovered and celebrated by new generations of filmmakers and audiences. Directors such as Orson Welles, Charlie Chaplin, and more recently, Wes Anderson have cited Keaton as a major influence on their work, praising his ability to blend humor with pathos and his innovative use of the camera.